Hi, romance readers. I am Liz Donatelli. Welcome to season 10 of Reader Seeks Romance, the #1 romance novel talk show on YouTube. Author Emma Barry joins me to discuss her sexy small-town romance, Chick Magnet. And Emma plays This Title Needs a Story. Enjoy, and be sure to like and subscribe. Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance, Emma.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz. I'm so excited to be here. I've watched your show so many times. I'm actually kind of nervous because you're such a great interviewer and your guests are always so charming and funny. I'm I don't know. I don't know if I'm up for this. So I hope it's going to be good.
Well, I think this is going to be an awesome interview now that you've buttered me up sufficiently. Congratulations on the release of Chick Magnet.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. It feels like this book has been in my head for years, and the fact that it's out in the world is just delightful.
Yes, and I have some questions about, actually, that's my first question. So speaking of that, I understand that you were inspired to write Chick Magnet during the pandemic while listening to your hen in your backyard.
Yes. Yeah. The idea was actually, some of it was older than that, but
okay.
There was an incident about 4.5 years ago where one of my chickens got out, and a neighbor that I had never met knocked on my door and was like, "Lady, your chicken is running around." And I was like, "Sir, that cannot be true." And my friends, it was so true. And so this man and I chased the chicken for 30 minutes in the rain. Oh. And when we finally caught her, I came inside and tweeted about it. And romance Twitter is, of course, the ultimate enabler. And they were like, "Yes, Emma, you should write that book." But I didn't have the rest of a plot. I just had a hook. And that is, for people who haven't read the book, the first chapter of the book. And so it was sort of there in the back of my head, I should write a chicken romance. And then it is true, about 2.5 years ago, during the kind of summer of 2020, I was laying in my hammock outside, and I have a flock of chickens, and they make these quiet little chicken noises as they're kind of pecking around the chicken yard. And I was like, chickens, pandemic, you really should go back to that idea. And that became sort of the genesis of the book. So yeah, so it's accurate. And then there's more context, I guess. That part.
I was going to ask about the neighbor who helped you. Was he kind of hunky or?
He was my neighbor's college age son, and I am super happily married. So there was no romance intrinsic in it, but all I could think the whole time was, I am living someone's meet cute. This is not my meet cute, but I was This is such a meet cute. So it had to be, I had to put it in a book.
Now I'm curious to know how much more of the novel is taken straight from your experiences.
Only 2 scenes. So the opening scene, the chicken chasing, and then the scene where a little girl has 2 gerbils who turn out to be male and female. And then there's a bunch of gerbils, and then her parents get one of the gerbils fixed. Oh. That scene is also taken from real life, where we bought my daughter gerbils, and we thought we were getting 2 males, and we were not getting 2 males. And so that also real, including the part where the vet won't say testicle in front of the kid, and then the kid supplies the word when she thinks the vet just doesn't know. Yeah, that happened.
Awesome. So the love story between Nicole or Nick and Will is an enemies to lovers. And Will is a gruff veterinarian, and Nick is a chicken-owning YouTube influencer. Were your characters speaking to you? Is that how? Because I feel like they are very strong personalities, and I'm assuming they came from the creative beyond.
I wish they had spoken to me from the start. Gosh, that would have been nice. It was more of ideas, and then I had to find their voices. And so for Nick, during the pandemic, I never really watched a ton of YouTube or TikTok. I mean, Instagram I did, but mostly the writer side of Instagram, not the kind of which is a tiny slice of the pie, right? And so not the kind of larger community. But I think everyone, I was home during the pandemic, and so it really just changed my media consumption diet. And the other thing that happened was we were trying to get new chicks. So we have often, when you have chickens, you get new chicks every couple years because they don't lay as many eggs as they get older. And our local feed store was we can't keep chicks in stock because everybody's buying buying chickens. And I was like, everybody's buying chickens. And so I started like getting into chicken influencers, which, by the way, if you are unaware of this sub community, is amazing. And so I had been like, I'm just blissfully ignorant of this just amazing, rich sub community. So I started watching a lot of chicken influencers, and they run the gamut. There's people who are like farmers, and there are people who are more like how to and a little bit more serious. And then there's people who are a little bit more like lifestyle-y. And it was just fascinating. And what was so addictive about it is that you watch like one or two videos and then you're like, I must know what happens. Like, I must know what happens with all of the chickens, right? I got so invested in the personalities and in the flocks and in the chickens. And I was like, this is just like, it's such a fascinating world. So I wanted to write a character who was an influencer, and particularly like a chicken influencer, because I was like, I just feel like there's a dearth of chicken influencers in romance, right? So silly. But then I just started like building bits of Nicole out. But it does take me a while to hear the characters' voices. And I often have to write 5 or 10 chapters from someone's point of view before I can like hear them. It would be great if that just like clicked for me from the start, but it doesn't. And with Will, it was sort of the same thing. Like, getting into vet TikToks, which is like another huge like subcategory, and like just sort of like building him out and like, okay, if she's like this, what would annoy him about her? And then like, oh, maybe she's giving medical advice on the channel that's not, from his perspective, solid, right? And like, okay, like I can sort of see this. And maybe he's been like hate watching her videos, but also like kind of has a crush on her. And then like, it's just kind of all sort of clicked into place. But it took a while. I wish it had been from the start.
Wow. Wow. So it's almost like you have to kind of inhabit their skin for a little time before you can. That's interesting. So they kind of slowly start revealing themselves to you, and then they let you in. They're like, okay, I'm ready to talk to you now.
Yes.
That's interesting. I was wondering if, because I thought it was a pretty strong argument that Will makes, that he's like, you're encouraging all these people to have chickens, and not all of them are good owners and good caretakers. Is that something on either, on this veterinarian, space online where they're saying, hey, people are just, being careless or reckless with their encouragement of owning, farm animals and keeping them as pets? Is that like a legit debate or concern? Yeah. Okay.
And there's reasons for it. Like, I really can see both sides. Not all vets will see poultry like that. And, she talks about that, and that is 100% true. Like, my regular vet will not see my chickens. That's just not something they do. And like, they're just very upfront. Like, that's not an animal that we treat. And so you have to find like a poultry vet. And so you do find a lot of medical advice in the chicken community that you don't, at least I don't, in like the dog owning community. And it is different. My relationship with my chickens is different than my dogs, different than my cat. But it, for me, felt like a very organic conflict, because these are communities that see the animals differently and that see the relationship, kind of differently. So I liked it in terms of like who they are iconically. Is that a word? I don't know. But also it made a lot of sense for me for their personalities. And I think Nick tries to kind of reframe how she approaches like medical advice on the channel, because she sees that his critique is legitimate. He's right about that.
So an interesting personality trait is that Nick's childhood was influenced by Greek mythology. And she refers to gods every now and again, and mentions atoning for sins by making an offering. I think she even mentioned like roasted meat usually was a good offering. So I was wondering where that personality trait came from.
Yeah. So she mentions that her grandma gave her the Delaire's book of Greek myths when she was a kid. And I don't know if you've ever ran into this book. It, I think, was published originally in the 50s, and it's retelling of Greek myths, but the artwork is really, really gorgeous. It's like this kind of mid-century, like modern sort of style. And when I was a kid, this was my favorite book to get from the library. For whatever reason, my parents never bought it for me, but I checked it out all the time. Like, I was like that Matilda kid, like always checking like up the stack of books. And this one was always on my stack of books. And so I had her grandma sort of give her this book. And for Nick, she has this very special relationship with her grandmother, who's now passed, her late grandmother. And part of why she moves to this little town in Virginia is that it is her grandmother's hometown. And so this kind of mythic thing comes from her grandma, but becomes, I think, a way to think about how Nick sees the world. Because one of the things with Will is that he thinks he has so much power, right? He thinks I can control everything. And therefore, all the stuff that's happening to me is my fault. And I was trying to think about like, what's the opposite way to think about that? And the way that the Greeks think about the influence of the gods on humanity, it takes a lot of pressure off you, right? Because you're being influenced by this other stuff. And so she can be so graceful, I think, toward the things that for him are these like big moral failings. And she's like, dude, it's not about you. Like, there's all this other stuff happening and you were doing your best and you have done nothing wrong and you don't need to feel bad. And a lot of that, I wanted to figure out a way why she could approach the world that way and why she would think that way. And so that sort of became the mechanism to help her do that.
Yeah. So typically, characters in romance novels have cats and dogs. Chick Magnet is the second book released within the last few months that features chickens. The other book being Kelly Olert's To Get to the Other Side. I'm not sure if you've heard of that one that now.
I have heard of it. I've not had a chance to read it. When my book announcement came out, Kelly's book announcement had just come out. I had not known her previously. And she reached out to me on Twitter and was like, hey, so I also have written a chicken book. And I was like, awesome. Great. So we're friendly on social media. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm going to, because like how delightful that there are 2 chicken books in a few months.
Yeah. I think you have to do some kind of chicken tour.
100%.
That would be
agree.
awesome. So my question to you is, have we entered the age of chicken sidekicks in romance fiction?
I mean, I can only hope. And there's one more that I can think of. Olivia Waite just released a book, which is a like sapphic historical, in which the characters, there's like a country fair, and one of them is like entering her chickens in the country fair. So, I mean, I can only imagine that this is the beginning of a golden age of chicken romance. But all these people can't have chickens. And I have lots of neighbors who keep chickens. I mean, there just can't be all these chickens around without them starting to show up in romance. So my fingers are crossed that this is a golden age of chicken romance.
I want to see more chickens in romance.
I can also say that Olivia Dade, another Olivia, there may be an upcoming emotional support chicken in an Olivia Dade book. I mean, who can say it's totally happening? But like, I'm just saying, I feel like there's more chickens.
More chickens. So there's lots of interesting info about raising and caring for chickens in Chick Magnet. What is a misconception about chickens as pets that you would like to clear up?
When I got chickens, I was only thinking about the eggs. I mean, I was just very egg focused, and like the eggs are great. Like, this is not to say like the eggs are bad in any way, but I wasn't thinking about them as having personalities. I imagined that they were kind of all the same, and that they were kind of boring, like as pets. I was just like, oh great, we're gonna put these chickens, they'll be in the backyard, and we'll just get the eggs. Chickens have incredibly distinct personalities. I have 4 hens right now. They are all very different, and I could describe them all to you at great length. They are incredibly social, in the way that they interact with each other is really fascinating, and also sometimes a little disturbing. Like the pecking order, not a metaphor. Like that is a very literal thing, and the way they relate to each other is really interesting. When we open the back door, like they run to the gate to see us. Like when I come in, like I think it's because they want me to give them treats. Like I don't think it's an emotional thing, but they are fun pets in addition to being these delightful creatures who also give you eggs. And I was 100% unprepared for that as a new chicken owner.
In the acknowledgements, you mentioned that Chick Magnet is a love letter to the vets and vet techs, and that there is a veterinary mental health crisis in the country, which I was personally unaware of. Could you share a bit more on that issue?
Yeah. So once I decided that Will was going to be a veterinarian, I had to like learn about veterinarians. I wish I could say that it came the other way, that it was like I knew this was happening and then I decided to write about it. But it was very much I sort of cast him and then like went into my research. One thing that I did not know is that economists estimate by the end of this year, 50% of veterinary practices will be owned by large corporations. And 4 years ago, it was only 20%. So there's this huge shift happening in the industry right now between being lots of like small individual veterinary practices to being like large corporate ones. And also people are increasingly buying stuff online. Like you buy, and I do it too, like you buy your dog's flea medicine online, and you know, your cat's on like a special diet and you buy that online because it's cheaper than at the vet. And also boarding is increasingly happening out of vet practices. So like there are grooming places and boarding places, and vets used to do those things. And the kind of overall thing that's happening is that it's a ton of pressure on individual vets and vet practices. And that's related to like a ton of stress. So vets report more stress, more depression, more suicidality than the general population, which is tragic, right? Especially female veterinarians, but male veterinarians as well. And so once I sort of learned all of that, you know, I wanted to kind of build it into the book, not as a like PSA or anything. It's not like an after school special, but it just felt like a very kind of natural extension for some of the things I was talking about with Will and mental health and his vet practice and so on.
Yes. It's not at all heavy handed or anything. Yeah, it's well done. So these are farm romance titles. You could tell me, you know, just a rough sketch of what kind of characters, what kind of tropes, that type of thing. Cold Turkey.
Cold Turkey.
What's it about?
So Cold Turkey is about, so turkeys only lay eggs once a year. Fun turkey fact here, like they only lay one clutch of eggs versus like chickens and ducks lay eggs all year. So the turkeys have laid their clutch of eggs, and our farmer is incredibly invested in the future of these eggs. And so I think he brings them inside. He's got them like in an incubator. Oh, and the power goes out. And who shows up to fix the power but the electrician, right? And so now we have this like farmer and female electrician, and they're trying to get the power back on in order to save the eggs and the future of the farm. So forced proximity, power outage, romance.
Whoa, you're good. You're good. It just came to you like lightning.
Well, it was a very evocative title.
Yes. Now, Cold Turkey does, what's the heat level, are you thinking? Is it going to be super hot because cold's in the title, so you want to go in the opposite direction?
Yeah, I think the title's got to be ironic in that case. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. The next one, When Pigs Fly.
Ooh. So pigs. I think we got to go very large pot-bellied hog on this one. Okay. Because otherwise, I mean, I think it would be easy to go like pot-bellied pig, like cute pig on a plane. It's the emotional support animal. But I think we want to, again, be a little ironic with our title. So let's see. Large pot-bellied hog. I think hog farm again. We're going like farm animal with this. And maybe, or now we have female farmer, and she's like a sustainable farm where you have like, you know, multiple crops, and you like keep the animals, and then you use the animal waste as like fertilizer. So she's doing this like sustainable farming thing. And he works for, say, like the seed company, who's very opposed to this sustainable farming model. So it's like enemies to lovers. It's like a conflict thing. And of course, he's going to realize he's wrong because like, that's just a wrong position. So he's going to come around to her position because clearly she's right. And that's only going to happen when pigs fly, right? So there's a kind of tying in like the title there.
Okay, very good, very good. Next one is Sheepishly Yours.
Ooh, sheep farming. Okay. So, I mean, obviously we got to do a wool plot. It's got to be like a farm/knitting romance. So like he's the sheep farmer. She is the like artisan, like wool dyer. Maybe, they should have been like corresponding for a long time, but they've never met. And then maybe they meet, but don't like a shop around the corner, you've got mail thing. They meet, but don't realize that they're the people who've been writing to each other. I feel like that would be the way to go with Sheepishly Yours. Because that also feels like a sign off, right? So I think it could like tie in with the epistolary nature.
Yes. I didn't even think of that as being kind of like a sign off in a letter like that. Nice. All right. I love it. Okay. Till the Cows Come Home.
Ooh, Till the Cows Come Home. Well, this one's got to be dairy romance. Dairy farmers right now having like a very difficult time. Maybe she's the dairy farmer. He's like, ooh, he should be a chef. And like an artisan cheese angle, I feel like. I think that's the way to go with When the Cows Come Home. Maybe he used to live in the small town, maybe it's Second Chance. And he's like refusing to come back, but he still wants like the fancy artisan cheese and butter for his big city restaurant. And then he's going to give up the restaurant and do like a farm to table thing in the small town at the end of the book.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good. The last one is called Horseplay.
Ooh, horses. Well, this one's got to be set in Kentucky, I feel like.
Yeah, sure.
On a horse farm, right? And it's, I mean, like a farm racing thing, but maybe it becomes kind of like an anti-racing book. So like, you know, like what does it look like as kind of like the horse race industry winds down? What are you going to do with those farms? How do you keep the tradition alive? I feel like we haven't done Second Chance. I think this has to be like a Second Chance book, horsing around. So yeah, I mean, I think it's something, maybe it should be like Second Chance Romeo and Juliet, like dueling families of like horse breeders, both dealing with the like crisis in the horse race industry. I feel like this is the way to go with horsing around.
Wow. Yeah, you see, you know a lot about so many animals. I'm just so ignorant of all of that.
I don't think it's true at all. And I suspect it's like growing up in Montana and then like keeping chickens. But I mean, I'm sure there are many things that this was another topic. You just picked one that worked really well for me. And so it all worked out. I think it's could have gone totally the other way.
Well, Emma, this has been a delight. You are a sweetheart. I've enjoyed our time together. Thank you for joining me here on Reader Seeks Romance.
It's been so lovely to chat with you, Liz. Thank you so much for having me.